You are watching the Target 7.1 retest video. Make sure you have the white packet in front of you. You will need to finish the entire packet before you are allowed to retest. If you need any help on your packet besides this movie, see your teacher before, after school, or during advisement works too. All right, here we go. This target is all about the graphing and finding significant features of a cubic function. So kind of important that you have a graphing calculator in front of you, or maybe you're using Desmos on your home computer, that which is free. So either way, I'm going to show you using the Inspire software that we have on our computers. So here is the graph from that. Now, the first few questions ask you to graph the cubic functions. So that's going to kind of come as we find all the points. So let's look at the questions that it asks you. This is number 1, by the way. Minimum, maximum, x-intercepts, y-intercepts. Where does the graph increase, decrease, domain, and range? So these first 4 questions are going to help us a lot with finding the actual graph. So we'll be able to use those and use the points on those. So on your calculator, you'll be hitting the menu button. I'm just going to right click, but it's all under Analyze Graph. And you see we have zeros, we have minimums and maximums. Those are going to be the ones that we're interested in. Let's do the zeros first. So when it asks you, it'll ask you lower bound and upper bound, and you drag it using your mouse. And there is one of those zeros. So I'll do it again for all 3 of them. Lower bound, upper bound, there's another one. And then the last one, Analyze Graph, 0, lower bound, upper bound. There's the third one. So that gives us 3 points that we can plot on our graph. Negative 2.3 and 1.3 and 2. Okay, let me move that out of the way. I'll get those written down. The x-intercepts. Negative 2.3 and 0, positive 1.3 and 0, and 2 and 0. All right, the y-intercepts are done by either plugging 0 in, or we can also call up the table. So I'll call up the table, and we're looking for the number that has 0 in the x. So 0, negative 6 is what we're looking at. That's this point right here. Move that off to the side. There's 0, negative 6. Okay, it kind of jumbles up the screen, so I'm going to take that off. Hit Control T again. That gets rid of the table. So 0, negative 6 is right about there. Now we're looking for the minimums and maximums, and they're done really the same way as you do the zeros. Analyze graph, minimum, and it'll ask you for a lower bound and an upper bound. And there is your minimum right there. Negative 1, negative 9. We'll also get the maximum. It's this point right here. There it is. 1.67 and 0.481. So it's about right there. All right, and then we can fill in the graph with some of the other points from the table. So I'll call up the table again. And we'll just put the ones that we know fit. So let's see. That one doesn't fit, but negative 2, negative 4 does. Negative 1, negative 9 we have. 0, negative 6 we have. 1, negative 1 we have right there. 2, 0 is on there already. And 3, negative 9. Okay. We know then that negative 3 is matched with something that's well above, and positive 4 is matched with something that's well below. Okay, let me slide the graph off of there. We'll write down these points. The minimum was negative 1, negative 9. The maximum was 1.67 and 0.481. And then we can draw our graph. So I'm not going to go past the negative 3 here, because negative 3 is matched with something that's well off the graph. So I'm going to start right around here. Try to draw a smooth curve. There's my minimum. There's my maximum. And there we go. Not the best. I'm sure you can do better. Um, so draw it as smooth as you can. Now, increasing and decreasing intervals. So this is where my graph is going to get a little messy. I would suggest that you don't necessarily do this on yours, but here's a decreasing interval, all of these things. That is from the maximum to the left. And here's another decreasing area. That was that was the minimum. This is from the maximum and to the right. So we're looking at those ranges, those intervals. And it always has to do with the relative minimum and relative maximums x coordinate. So the decreasing part is to the left of -1, that's less than -1, and to the right of the maximum, which is 1.67. So that's x is greater than 1.67. The part that's increasing is in between them. So again, we're still going to use the -1 and the 1.67, but to draw an interval that's in between them, we put the x in between. So it's always going to be less than x less than, and you put the smaller one here and the bigger one here. That's how you do the in-between piece. Now, if the graph is shaped the other way, the decreasing one will be the in-between one, and the increasing one will be the one with two inequalities. All right, and then as far as domain and range goes, this one does not have any context, so the domain and range is all real numbers. We're not breaking any rules like square root of a negative or dividing by 0, so it's all real numbers. Now, when you do get to problems towards the end, you just want to put the minimum and the maximum, and you'll write it something like this for the domain and range. So the smallest number goes here, the biggest number goes there, and the x is in between for domain, and the y is in between for range. All right, that should give you enough hints here to look at the next few problems, and there's only a few of them on this packet. Use your calculator, get those, practice the keystrokes that get you the minimums and maximums, and then when you get to the problems that actually have context, read the problems thoroughly. Once you have the graph and all the possible points that we plotted on this graph, you should be able to see the answers in there. Okay, any extra help you need, make sure you see your teacher.